I'd always relished the quiet of being home alone, but as the night deepened, the familiar sounds of the house took on an unsettling tone. My parents had left for a weekend getaway, leaving me to fend for myself. With each passing hour, the usual comfort of solitude transformed into an eerie sensation of isolation. The evening had begun like any other: dinner, a movie, and a bit of reading to wind down. But as the clock struck midnight, a sense of unease settled upon me. The house, usually a haven of warmth and familiarity, felt strangely alien in the darkness. I tried to shake off the creeping apprehension, attributing it to the late hour and the absence of my parents. But the silence that enveloped the house seemed to amplify every creak and rustle, magnifying them into ominous echoes. I turned on every light in the house, trying to dispel the encroaching shadows. Yet, despite the glow that bathed the rooms, a sense of foreboding lingered like a specter in the corners. As I settled into bed, the silence became deafening, broken only by the occasional tick-tock of the old grandfather clock downstairs. I buried myself under the covers, seeking refuge from the unsettling stillness. But as I drifted towards sleep, a sound pierced the silence, a faint scratching at my bedroom door. My heart raced and I lay frozen, straining to discern whether it was merely my imagination. The scratching persisted, growing louder, more urgent. I mustered the courage to call out, my voice trembling in the darkness. "Hello?" Silence followed, broken only by the pounding of my own heartbeat. I held my breath, listening intently for any sign of a response. But then came a voice, a whisper so faint it seemed to materialize from the very walls. "Let me in." A chill raced down my spine, my breath catching in my throat. It sounded like my mother's voice, but something about it felt off, sending shivers of dread down my spine. My mind raced with conflicting thoughts. Was it truly my mother? Had something happened to her? Against my better judgment, I crept toward the door, my hand hovering over the doorknob. But a sudden surge of apprehension seized me. Something felt dreadfully wrong, an instinct warning me of a looming danger. The voice persisted, pleading, cajoling, demanding entry. But the more it spoke, the more its semblance to my mother faltered. It seemed to mimic her, a distorted echo that bore no warmth or familiarity. In a sudden surge of panic, I rushed to my phone, dialing my mother's number. Relief washed over me as her voice greeted me on the other end. I tried to explain the bizarre encounter, but my words stumbled and faltered, unable to capture the sheer terror of the moment. As I spoke to my mother, the scratching at the door intensified, a relentless barrage that seemed to grow more frenzied. My mother's voice trembled with concern, urging me to stay put while she called the neighbors for help. I huddled in the corner of my room, the scratching now accompanied by a guttural growl that resonated through the door. Dread coiled in the pit of my stomach as I realized whatever was on the other side was not my mother. Minutes stretched into agonizing eternities, the scratching and growling echoing through the house. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the sounds ceased, leaving behind a haunting silence. The front door burst open, flooded with the blinding beam of a neighbor's flashlight. My parents and the neighbors rushed in, their concerned faces a stark contrast to the terror that had gripped me moments before. But as they searched the house, they found nothing amiss, no signs of forced entry, no trace of any intruder. My parents held me tight, reassuring me that it might have been a raccoon or some other animal outside. Yet, as the night wore on, I couldn't shake the lingering dread that nestled in the recesses of my mind. The scratching, the voice, it felt far more sinister than any natural explanation could justify. I spent the rest of the night in a restless haze, haunted by the uncanny encounter that had shattered the illusion of safety within the walls of my own home.